There we go. Okay, we'll start over. Welcome, everyone. Happy to see all of you here, and we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with the roll call. Tonight we have Dale Hansen, Business Administrator, Terry Rhodes, Board Member, Jeff Nielsen, Board Member, Alan Grunig is excused. I'm Kathy Christiansen, Board Member, Roger Pulsifer, Board Member, Steve Norton, Superintendent, Randall Bagley, Board Member, and Larry Jepson, Board Member. And we will go ahead and have the pledge and mission statement, and I will do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our mission statement is, our mission is to educate students for success in a changing world. And we're going to begin with, let's see, is Trudy here? Oh, you'll be doing that. And then what about the?
We might want to hold just a minute. We got a card that should be here. Make this a little sweeter.
Okay. All right, Debbie, you good to go through, wait for one thing? So we'll start with you, Diane. We're kind of skipping around on the agenda, so we've moved down to one of the reports, so Diane doesn't have to sit through the whole thing.
Very kind of you, very kind. I'm Diana Cannell with Allred Jackson, and we are the independent auditor for Cache County School District. I'm sure Dale feels like we audit them year-round with all the various audits that are required between the federal government and the state government. The report that you have in front of you is your financial audit, which also includes your scheduled federal awards audit, which is the federal audit, almost $10 million in federal funds this year expended. Besides the financial audit, we also do the adult education audit, the fall enrollment, the student membership, including the transfers. So we just finished up the very last of all of those other small audits. This kind of wraps up the whole year. I was telling Dale, he gets a little break from us for a while, but we really appreciate all that Dale, his staff, the audit committee, everyone does. Fantastic group of people that you have working for Cache County School District at all levels. We're really appreciative of them. I'm going to give you just a few financial highlights. I know the report is thick. If you, as you're going through it later, have questions, please reach out to me. Happy to answer any and all questions as you go through it. But just for, I'm on page 27. This is just a very, very high-level kind of financial highlight on things that happened within the district financially. Two major themes as you're looking through this, and one is you're going to see a large amount of increase in your capital assets. And that is due to, I'm sure you are well aware, the new high schools that are going in. As of June 30th, you still had some construction funds still pending to finish up Green Canyon High School. But during the year, you had Ridgeline completed. You also had multiple building projects with various elementary schools and retrofitting some of those other ones too. To the tune of your fixed assets went up. They ended at $213 million, which was a $26 million increase. The decrease in the assets came from cash and restricted cash, and some of those were bond funds that were being held for that purpose. And so net effect, your assets went up about $4.2 million over the year. Now, keep in mind, not only did your assets increase, but if you turn the page, you're going to see that in your liability section, your long-term debt decreased about $8 million. So you paid down net amount of about $8 million in debt. You can see a recap of both fixed assets and debt in the footnotes. Your debt section's on page 64 if you ever want to see individually how things are and what debt issuances you have. And your capital assets is on page 56. It'll show you how much land, buildings, vehicles, everything that increased in those, and that's just in the footnotes. Net effect, your equity in fixed assets net of debt went up $2.6 million. So that's a very positive thing. You're building not only the infrastructure, but you're increasing the value of the district as well. If you turn to page 29 and 30, you can see the revenues and the expenses. Now, this is a little different setup with the governmental accounting. The expenses are on the first column, followed by then some various columns for the revenues. But net effect, there you can see that your change in net position, or a net income, as most people would be more familiar with, was about $7.3 million. This does not account for the cash that went out for the fixed assets, just the depreciation expense associated with all of your fixed assets. If you turn to page 34 and 35, you can see now these schedules. You remember governmental accounting, we show it both ways. So these schedules will actually show the revenues and expenses, stripping out the fixed assets, but having them just run through as like a capital outlay expense. And you would also see the debt principal paydowns would also run through an expense. But here you can see where were your revenues over last year. If you look at the top of page 34, $151 million is where the revenues ended up for the year. The biggest increase, which was about a $12 million increase over last year, the biggest component of that was your state revenue. Your state revenue, you can see, went from $83 million to $91 million over the year. You can also see that your expenses on page 35 also went up about $12 million. You can see the big, in the second column over, that's your capital projects fund, $37 million in expenses. With all of the improvements that you were putting in during the fiscal year. So quite a few, I'm sure, quite a few projects going on, and some great things. I've been out and seen the schools, and they're just beautiful. So that's commendable. With your scheduled federal awards, I'll take you that's back towards the back of the schedule, starting on page 95. Here you can see all the various federal award monies that come through. Now, a lot of these will come actually passed through the state of Utah. But once they are federal awards, they stay federal awards for testing purposes. And we had two major programs this year that we tested, and that was the Medicaid, all the Medicaid grants and all the IDEA grants were tested as major programs this year. I'm pleased to report there are no findings related to any of the federal awards that we tested, and we test them very extensively as required by the standards that are set forth. So that's congratulations. It's not an easy task when you're dealing with so many transactions and requirements from that. So I'm very, very happy to report that. In the very back of the report, you'll notice we have a management letter, and in there you'll see we do have one, what we call a matter. It's not even elevated to what I would consider a finding, and this is just on a state compliance item, and it's related to your treasurer's bond. You're required to have a certain percentage of what your next year's revenues are going to be as a treasurer's bond for kind of insurance, aerosol emissions type insurance. And with the increase of revenues that you had with the bond proceeds, that amount of the treasurer's bond did not go up enough to cover what that new percentage was with the bond proceeds. So it's a finding. It's already been fixed. I think as soon as we pointed that out, it immediately got adjusted and increased. And we'll probably have to stay there for I think another at least a year, right, Del? That we think that upper level of the treasurer's bond will have to be until those revenues drop down after those bond proceeds. So, glowing report. I'm really pleased with how things turned out, the cooperation we received, and everything as we went in and did the testing. Do you have any questions or things that you'd like me to address in a little more depth? I know numbers are so exciting.
Thank you, Diana.
Yes,
I
thank
did
you.
read this at home
Oh.
after you gave me the first copy.
Thank you, Terry. And I know I
Well
really
done.
appreciate you always do that. So Terry's wonderful. She picked out a few little things for us to fix, which was fantastic, and we appreciate all the time and effort that the whole audit committee puts into that as well.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that. And thank you, Dale, for all the hard work, you and your department, whoever works on it besides you. We appreciate that. Okay, we still don't have,
Should we wait or go ahead? I think go ahead. Okay.
should we go ahead? Okay. All right. We would like to go ahead then, and we're excited tonight to recognize our Teacher of the Year, Debbie Reeves. So,
All right. Debbie Reese is a beloved teacher in the Cache County School District. After attending Snow College and Utah State University, she has taught at Lewiston Elementary, Summit Elementary, and is currently a third grade teacher at Providence Elementary. Debbie's personal life is filled with walks in the mountains, kayaking, reading, knitting, and tending to thousands of bees. Her family has grown to a total of 12 members over the years, including 4 children, 3 grandsons, a daughter-in-law, a son-in-law, and 1 gal they would like to claim as their own. The family enjoys being together for play, work, food, watching baseball, or travel. Debbie took time away from her teaching profession to raise her children. She also received her master's degree from Western Governors University. Debbie has modeled her role as a teacher from the lessons she has learned from being a beekeeper. On the door of her classroom, there is a sign that says, "Welcome to the Hive." The students are her worker bees. They want to please her and are willing to work hard for her, which is evident by her high annual classroom SAGE scores. She is a caring and committed teacher, and parents are aware of the positive impact she has on children. In fact, many parents submit requests years ahead to have their children in her classroom. The best part of teaching for Debbie are the aha moments, when a student who has been struggling with a task or concept nails it. In Debbie's own words, "I love encouraging the gritty kids." In addition to working as a classroom teacher, Debbie has helped with many curriculum projects for the Cache County School District. She is very knowledgeable about curriculum mapping and the design of formative assessments. Many of the projects and assessments which she has worked on are currently used across our school district. Because of her mastery of teaching, her personal, professional demeanor, high ethical standards, curriculum expertise, and excellent communication skills, I present to you Debbie Reese as the Cache County School District Teacher of the Year for 2017-18.
Oh, my. Did you write this yourself? I'm impressed. Well, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. It's a pleasure to work in our district. It's a district where we're financially sound, and we've got our administration looking out for us. Our curriculum's well-founded, and that leaves me time to just focus on my job and teaching kids. And I know that the district's got my back. I appreciate that. And I know many teachers in our district feel that same way. So thank you so much.
Okay, would you have your husband's
Tom?
like to recognize him?
Yes. Yeah. Yay. Yeah. He's made lots of visual aids for the classroom, so. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Here, we must-
And what about the other?
Okay,
You know, I think we'll have to do a school presentation for that,
okay.
so stay tuned.
There's more coming, but
I just need a fruit basket.
We're not photobombing.
Okay, any public input? None. Okay, we'll go ahead then and move down to the consent agenda, and I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second it.
Okay, all of us will now vote. Okay, great. Excuse me, now we'll move down to the action agenda, and we will hear about the request for approval of the UCA budget by Gary. All right.
that way this meeting will go.
Faster. All right, Gary, we're just going to have you do the ones that you're going to do all at once, even though it might not follow the numerical order up here.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Well, let's start with the UCA then. Coming around right now is just the first page. If you'll recall, last time we met, I gave you about a 7-page document, but as I've looked back over it, I want to maybe make a change just to the very first page. So I'd like to just address, if you look, it says as is. If you go down to 1.3.1, it talks about a district-wide committee that will help communicate the understanding of UCA to our community members. We do not have that district committee put together representing our 25 schools. So on the back side, if you'll look under that 1.3, it says district, school, grade level, department, personnel, learning, professional learning communities, PLCs. If you go down to the 1.3.1 that is highlighted, building UCA understanding in the community, we would like to maybe change that to say, district directors, coordinators, and specialists will support school community council improvement plans by supplying data, resources, compliance, information, and other assistance as needed. Basically, what we would like to do, which is what we do now, is this committee that is putting this together really delivers this information to our principals, who then delivers this information to their school community councils, who are the ones really in charge of writing the trust lands plan, the school improving plan, and a Title I plan if they are a Title I school. So I'm here to request approval of our UCA plan. You have an option of the way it was presented to you a couple of weeks ago, or as modified here, amended by that.
Okay,
So
and your suggestion is the amended, correct?
my suggestion would be that we move to the amended version that I just handed out, yes.
Okay. All right, any questions on this? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve it.
I make a motion that we approve the UCA plan as amended.
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Okay, all right, what's your next one?
My next item is the boundaries for Millville Elementary to be extended a little bit on the south end of Hiram there. If you'll recall, there's a current subdivision going in, and the way our boundary's set right now, that subdivision would be split 1/3 and 2/3 between Canyon Elementary and Millville Elementary. Canyon Elementary is currently full. Millville Elementary actually has a couple empty classrooms. So my proposal is that we just extend that boundary so that those, when the homes start going in, those children will actually come to Millville Elementary and will be in that boundary before any homes are even built.
Okay,
12.
thank you. All right, I'll take a motion to approve the Millville Elementary boundary change.
I make a motion, we approve the request for the approval of Millville Elementary boundary changes.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, vote then. We will vote.
All votes are in, the voting is unanimous.
Okay, is
Thank
that it
you.
for you? All right, thanks. All right, request for the new cell phone policy?
All right, so the plan you have on the agenda is, or the policy has been revised since we last met. So this, based on some of the feedback we received from the board, and also some feedback that we received from some schools. So all the changes that have been made to the policy are reflected in what you have before you. And I know some of you have read over that. We did present this policy in our principals meeting the other day, just to make sure that they were all on board with this. So I think when we started crafting this policy and moved it to cellular devices, Apple's announced they have a wearable cellular watch now instead of one that just connects with your iPhone. So, well, the implants will be out in a couple of weeks, I think. So anyway, we're requesting approval of the cellular device
Okay, I'll
policy.
take a motion to approve the new cell phone policy.
I move that we approve the new cellular device policy.
I second it.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Was there any feedback from the principals when you handed that out in the principals meeting?
Let's see, you were there. I think there was a couple, I don't think there was anything substantive other than positive.
Okay. On the new part that deals with emergency situations
Mm-hmm.
for secondary schools, need a clarification on the part where it says, the middle line says, however, cellular devices use should not interfere with the student's ability to follow directions. Is that intended to be a singular student or plural students? Sorry, this is wordsmithing, but before we approve it,
Yeah, I could certainly change
I'm
that
just
to
not
interfere with a student's ability to follow directions. I
Okay.
could also make it plural and say with students with an apostrophe.
well, either way, but how it is right now, it's just not
Which would you prefer?
super clear. Kathy?
I think with, anybody else have a different opinion on that, with a student's ability? How has it been presented throughout all the others, as singular or plural? Yeah, it's listed.
Sometimes plural, elementary students, 2A
Mhm.
is plural.
Okay, and then C onto, also as students, so maybe keep it consistent and do that plural,
Do the plural
yeah.
as amended.
Okay,
Also, on that same line we were talking about where it says, however, cellular devices use, probably drop the S on the devices.
mhm, yeah. Need an apostrophe there on devices.
Anyone else want to wordsmith anything while we're talking about it?
Okay, go ahead and vote, we'll go ahead and vote. Has that come in?
I'd have voted. At least it said I did.
Must be close.
That's strange.
His box is gone.
Yeah.
So just hit yay, because he hit yay.
Okay, then all the votes are in and again.
Okay, thanks, Tim. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the district data governance plan.
Okay, I'm going to kind of lump 3 and 4 together if it's okay. So I mentioned last time I was here that State of Utah House Bill 358, hopefully I have that right, is intended for student data privacy, and we're required by October 1st of this year to have a data governance plan in place and approved by the board, as well as an IT security plan. There are a couple of parts with the data governance plan in addition to the plan itself, which would be our research review process, which you have as a document in there, and also our third-party vendor agreement for those who house data of our students outside of the school district. We've already began the process of getting those signed for anything new we're bringing in, and then if this gets approved tonight, we'll continue on with our existing vendors to make sure that gets signed. Thank you to Terry, who did read every word of these plans and spared you guys the gory details of the grammar and punctuation and sent those to me after last meeting, which I diligently changed and sent her back a report of what I'd changed. So thank you. That was really helpful, actually, so appreciate
Okay.
that.
Can I ask questions before we take a vote? Or do I have to wait till we take a vote? I can ask questions. Okay, so this was new to me because I wasn't here at the last meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I did have a couple of questions. On one of these documents, it said that the school board should have training and that we should sign.
Correct.
We've never done that.
Right,
So is that new?
yes,
Okay, so is that gonna happen then?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the other thing, it said that the surveys, like research projects, needed to be submitted to the curriculum committee. Does that happen?
Yes, and that's happened for some time. We just
Okay.
revised the policy.
So like, the survey we got in big trouble for last time?
Oh, no,
that-
this is research review request. This would be something like a university professor or student is requesting to conduct a study within our school district.
Okay, so the Bear River Health Department's surveys, that doesn't fit into this?
Well, some of the surveys fall under state direction, and so we don't include those because we're directed by the state to offer those
Okay.
surveys.
I
So
just
they
wanted to
don't-
make sure we were in compliance of what the reports had
Yeah.
said. So we're good?
Yep.
Okay. I'll take a motion then to approve the district data governance plan.
I make a motion that we approve the district data governance plan.
I second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Okay, all right, the IT security plan then.
So you want a motion?
Any questions on that one?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Had a brain freeze there for a moment. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I will take a motion to approve.
I make a motion, we approve the IT security plan.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, we will vote. Okay, thank you. It's kind of like watching Dancing with the Stars, isn't it? You just keep waiting and waiting.
Nobody holds a paddle, huh?
See who's gonna win.
I'll sashay my way back to my
Yeah.
seat.
I don't think it's that
Okay, thanks, Tim. All right, request for approval of Green Canyon Student Clubs.
Green Canyon.
We just need the music behind it.
Oh, who's he dancing with?
I've never seen Tim sachet before. I'm here requesting approval for Green Canyon Student Clubs, previously presented in last month's board meeting.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve Green Canyon Student Clubs.
I move that we approve the Green Canyon Student Clubs.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote.
Votes are all in and unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Made it.
All right, request for the approval of Ridgeline High School Clubs.
I'm here to request a vote for clubs at Ridgeline High School
Okay,
by
I'll take,
assignment from my assistant principal.
all right. I will take a motion to approve the Ridgeline High School.
I make a
Clubs.
motion, we approve the Ridgeline High School clubs.
Second.
Discussion?
Randall.
Yeah, I got a question. I was reading the applications the students submitted. Have you ever considered having a penmanship club?
Clubs have to be requested by the students. Nobody's asked for that yet.
I have a question. Do you care whether they spell their words right?
Sure, I guess we do. I haven't read through them.
Are you talking about the Writing Warriors?
No, I'm talking about the Secretary of Defense.
Oh, yeah.
Defense, like sitting on the fence.
I was just going to be
That's how we,
kind
that's
and
how
not
we
bring that
spell
up.
it. That's how we say it too, defense.
Right, on
The man's on
defense.
defense.
Okay, let's vote.
But maybe that's
Oh.
what it means.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Anyway, cute.
Anybody else want to make fun of Ridgeline?
I abstained. I noticed it,
Thank
but I
you.
abstained. So. All righty.
Okay, all votes are in unanimous.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, right, there is no one here to present for the maturation film, so I guess we'll just go ahead. Okay. I hope
I actually
everyone's
didn't
had
know
a
it was
chance
going
to
to be on the
view it.
agenda tonight, but
Okay,
you were sent the film and
yeah.
were able to view that.
All right, anything that you want to say?
No, this
Okay.
film is intended to be used with the middle school girls, females, and that's the intent of it. It's been through the Human Sexuality Committee.
Is that middle school or fifth grade? I think it's fifth grade.
I think it's fifth
Yeah.
grade.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, it
fifth
is,
grade.
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
All right, I will take a motion to approve the maturation film.
I make the recommendation that we accept the maturation film.
I second it.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote.
Okay, all votes are in and unanimously in favor.
Okay.
Just a postscript discussion to this. I mentioned this last time. Just want you to be aware of that the new human sexuality policy that was passed by the state board and adopted by the district indicates that the board has to approve all of the curriculum changes that deals with human sexuality in the district. We met today and got a process for that. We're trying to consolidate it so it happens at least just a couple times a year. And so we've got a meeting Monday with that committee to do some approvals. So you'll see that on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure you knew why that would appear on the agenda in the coming months and what changes precipitated that.
Thank you. All right, Spring Creek Middle School, approval for the school land trust budget adjustment.
Okay, we were asked to make several adjustments to the financial categories included in our 2017-2018 school trust lands plan. We needed to create expenditure category, general supply, which is code 6100. Blake said that was for you, Dale. And fund it with $2,000. We needed to move $4,000 that had been in the audiovisual expenditure category to both $2,000 in the general supply and move the other $2,000 to computer software. And then purchases that were made in the general supply category included headphones for Chromebooks. We also moved an existing audiovisual system from a room to another room. We also purchased in the computer software category. We had 88 new Chromebooks, and we had to buy the managing software for GoGuardian and the software in general for the 88 Chromebooks also. We purchased a keyboarding software and software for a new PC. These adjustments have been presented and approved by our school community council as well.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the school land trust budget adjustment for Spring Creek Middle School.
I make a motion that we approve the Spring Creek Middle School Land Trust budget adjustment.
I second it.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote.
All votes are in, unanimous in favor of
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the school land trust budget adjustment for Wellsville Elementary.
We'd just like to make the request for the approval of the school land trust budget adjustment for Wellsville Elementary as we presented to you several weeks ago.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the school land trust budget adjustment for Wellsville Elementary.
I move that we approve the school land trust readjustment for Wellsville Elementary.
Second.
Okay, we'll vote.
All votes are in and unanimous in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the approval of the school land trust adjustment for White Pine Elementary.
Okay, last time I was here, I asked to move all of our money except for $8,000 into a teacher salary so that we could provide half of the salary for an extra fifth grade teacher. So I'd like to ask if that has been approved.
Okay, I'll take a motion for approval of the school land trust budget adjustment for White Pine Elementary.
I move that we approve the school land trust budget adjustment for White Pine.
I second.
Okay, we'll vote.
Can I ask a question now? Did you get clarification from Dale on the half?
I've got a big note for me, so I've got to talk to you, Dale, about where she started later than the rest of the teachers. What would her number be? So is it going to be prorated? So I'll get together with you as far as an exact amount of her salary.
Yeah, it would be prorated by the actual days, contract days that she has under contract.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll vote.
All votes are in and unanimous in favor of the motion.
Approved. Thank you.
All right, request for the approval of the school land trust budget adjustment for Lewiston. Ah, we don't have anybody here.
Gary, could you, just a formality to ask for it, Gary could do that.
Okay.
I'm here to request the approval of the school land trust budget for Lewiston Elementary, who I know and love dearly from my years past being there. So as a former principal, that's why I'm here.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the school land trust budget adjustment for Lewiston Elementary.
I make a motion, we approve the school land trust budget adjustment for Lewiston Elementary.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, we'll vote.
Really? Oh. Yeah, I voted. Favor. Yeah.
All right, all votes are in and unanimous in favor of the motion.
Okay, thanks, Gary, yeah. All right, proposal for the purchasing policy revision.
Good evening. I am here to request approval for the amended proposal for the purchasing policy revision and also number 14 on your agenda, the approval of the proposed procurement procedures for the child nutrition program as well. And thank you, Terry, for sending me the email, and we have amended those as requested in those areas.
That's kind of an annoying document, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Okay, before we approve it, I just read it for the first time.
Okay.
The child nutrition.
Yes.
Excuse me, I might have missed something on it, but SFA, what does that stand for?
School Food Authority.
And is that defined in there so it's clear?
It's a federal designation for a school food authority. Cache County School District would be the SFA for the district.
Could you on the document, after we approve it, maybe the first time you state it in the full name and then put SFA in it? So if anybody reads it, they know what that stands for.
Absolutely. I will put that.
Okay, and then this is a district policy, right?
It's actually it's actually a federal policy that came through the state then to us. But the
Okay.
state actually gave it to us and asked that we adopt that policy.
All right, so Jenda, can you format it so it matches all of our others if it's going to go on our site? Because the formatting was off.
Right.
It's a different format.
It is, and where it came from the state, I will work with Jenda to do that. We thought if there were revisions that came from the state, it might be good for us to keep it in the format, just for ease of use, but we can definitely format that
Okay.
to how we want to.
And then, Terry, did you give correct suggestions on the conventions, the spelling, capitalization, punctuation? Okay, so that's taken care of. I don't know how to, Jenda, I need to have you show me how to do that on the computer, because that's a much easier way to hand in the things. I don't know, I just noticed that there were some.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so how do I do this? One at a time?
One at a time.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to approve the proposed purchasing policy revision.
I move that we approve the proposed purchasing policy revision.
I second it.
We'll vote.
To go? Okay.
So all votes are in unanimous.
Okay. I'll take a motion to approve the proposed procurement procedures child nutrition program.
I move that we approve the proposed procurement procedures child nutrition program.
I second it.
Okay, let's vote.
All votes are in unanimous.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move down to the reports agenda and go to the audit report.
Done that.
Oh, annual financial report. And why don't you just take the monthly report at this, together, those two.
Sophie, I put on your desk a paper copy of the annual financial report of the school district. The report itself, again, this is for all of the 2016-17 school year. The very first section of that report is the annual financial report that's filed with the state auditor's office and the state school board. And so it actually takes each fund individually, gives a presentation of the balance sheet, gives the revenues, the expenditures, changes in fund balance, the equity section at the end. So again, it's presented that way for each of the funds that we have. And then following that, on page 32, would be a proof of cash of all of the funds combined. And then I presented then the report that we've been looking at each month as we make financial reports in the district throughout the year. So with that, you can see, looking at page 35, each of the programs with revenue on property tax, you can see that we actually received 5.4% more than we had budgeted for property tax. And so that's true in all three funds that receive property tax revenue, so the general fund, the debt service fund, and the capital outlay fund. So the figures that we have from the county, apparently they've changed a little bit from when we set the tax rate, so that would have had higher collections. It could be also due to fee and lieu revenue that we have, like on vehicles and that are outside of budget's held well, all of the revenues came in fine. The state revenues, again, little definition that we have is that we only recognize state revenue after it has been used for the purpose that we received it. So funds, be like carryover funds in certain programs, we don't recognize that as being revenue received in this past year. It's now it's like deferred revenue, so it's deferred into the next year, into this current 2018 year. And so that's why you'll see that the state revenue, we've only received 94.5% of what we budgeted. But again, like I say, that carries over into the new year. So if you go to page 40, this is probably the most interesting part of it, is the equity section of the general fund. So at the end of the year, we actually we had $15.9 million of an accrued cash balance as of June 30th. Of that amount, $4.5 million of that is deferred revenue. So it's funds that we're holding, but we actually are deferring that into the next year. So those won't be counted as current year revenue on the income statement. And then, so that really leaves us 11.3 million. Of that total, then we have a undistributed reserve of $2.5 million. We have a reserve for the demolition of the old Wellsville Elementary building. And then a $30,000 reserve for our fire insurance deductible. And then we have carryovers that are out of unrestricted funds. So this would be like allocations we make out to the schools for their supply budget, for basically pretty much what it is. So anything for textbooks, for custodial supplies, for carryover funds from the Smithfield Recreation Center, any of those types of things. We have a total there of $3.2 million made up in those type of unrestricted fund carryover balances. And then the final number, which is called the unappropriated fund balance, are the funds that are free and clear at the end of the year that are not designated for any specific use. So they are free and clear to be used in the next year. And so that totals $4,767,000. Turn the next page over, you can see the comparison, looking at the last 5 years of the general fund balance. You can see that this is the highest unappropriated fund balance we've had within that time. In fact, as long as I ever remember in the district, this is the largest amount. And this really is due to two things. One is the equalization funding formula that the Senate Bill 92.7 has made a big difference in the funding that we receive as a district, but also the growth that we've had. We've continued to grow 500 plus students each year for the last 3 years. And so with carryover we've had at the end of each of those other years, we maybe have paid out a small salary augmentation to employees, and another small little things we've done, but the bulk of it is actually carried over to the next year and the next year. And so that's how this is accumulated, plus the additional funding that we received for additional students above and beyond what we had originally budgeted. Like I say, last year I think we had 525 new students or something. I think we had only budgeted about 200, as I remember. And so there was 300 additional students that generated funding for the school district. With that, we paid for additional teacher FTEs and that we needed to accommodate those students. Then again, that added to the carryover that was realized needs this year. The next page actually looks at the capital outlay fund itself.
Can I ask a question on the carryover?
Excuse me.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes,
Is that carryover money that can be used towards the district office?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the intent.
That's what it's there for?
That is.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's truly discretionary. Now, coming from the general fund, it can be used for any of the purposes that we have as a school district. If they're in a specific, say like the capital outlay fund, they have restrictions on what those funds can be used for. Like they can't be used for salaries and for school lunch program or anything like that. It's for buildings and brick and mortar, basically. But yeah, as a general fund, it's free to be used however the school board decides.
So I have another question since I wasn't here last time, and maybe you've already answered that. Would you just out and out pay the total on the new district office from this, or would it be payments yearly or whatever? What's the plan on that?
Plan right now is it would be a full upfront payment.
Cool. Makes me feel like I'm Park City.
It's a rare case when we're able to do this.
Awesome.
It will affect our fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
And also with the student count that we have for this year's October 1 count, we picked up, what is it here? So we only grew 368 students above what we had last year. Part of that reduction is with the opening of a new charter school in Providence. So that took some of our students that otherwise would have come to our district.
And the 6th grade at Edith Pony
Correct.
was added, so.
So with those changes, we still have 173 more students than we had intended. And so those will all generate additional funding for us. And also, we had actually overestimated the kindergarten enrollment by 92 students. So this is one of the first years that we've actually had a smaller starting kindergarten. And part of the effect of that is these charter schools that have affected that. But with having additional students and having less kindergarten students only generates 55% of a weighted pupil unit, where a student in grades 1 through 12 get a full WP. So that's going to help give us a heavier weighting too, also in our funding increase. So we're anticipating this will generate just in excess of an additional $1 million in this year's budget, above and beyond what we have built the budget on. And so with the carryover, with some of that additional funding that we have, and part of that will be used to cover the added cost for some of our for additional teachers that we've had to hire with the increased enrollment. But still, that's the intent of where these funds will come from.
Okay, thank you.
Page 43 then is the breakdown of the capital outlay fund. With that, we do have like the instructional equipment allocations that have been made to the schools. They had a carryover of $385,000. Down the district maintenance had a carryover of $854,000. And then of building or funds to cover our building projects, we had $12 million of bond funds still carried over at year end, and additional just over $2 million of capital equalization funds that are designated for those projects. So those should be used to finish up those projects, with the new cash high being the final project for finishing up. Page 45, 6, and 7 are a breakdown looking at each of our individual schools with the funds that they have collected. Secondary school, we definitely receive more funds than the elementaries because they collect student fees, where the elementary schools do not. But it will show then a breakdown of the types of revenues they've received, the expenditures they've incurred, and the carryover balance that they have at the bottom of each column for each of the schools. So we have a total there on that third page then of just under $4 million carryover in funds that are held out in the schools themselves. And then the very last report in the handout is, again, another report that's required goes in and takes each individual program of special ed, of CTE, of school land trust programs, and each program that we have restricted funding and unrestricted funding, those are all presented here so you can see what each program is costing, the revenues that they generate, and expenditures that they've incurred this last year. And again, these are only presented where you only recognize the revenue that's been spent, so this doesn't show the carryover in each individual program, but back on that first page that I mentioned where it showed the breakdown of the equity on the general fund, that listing of deferred revenue really is where you can see then the carryover balance of each of the programs. That's what was back on page 40 and 41. Page 40 is where the deferred revenue is shown. So it's been a very good year. Say the audit findings here were, the report itself was stellar, I think, for the district's operation. We're in a strong financial position. We're going to be able to possibly do things that we never dreamed possible in the district. And so, yeah, I'm happy to say we ended the year well. And good to move on to another year.
Great, thank you.
So you can revel in your Park City feeling for a few minutes.
Okay. All right. It'll never happen again, right?
That's right.
Go on.
Thanks for your work, Dale. That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
Dale, one question. What's the explanation for the huge variance in the carryovers of the various schools? Some being very small and others being huge?
Yeah. Most of your elementary schools are close to the same carryover amounts. You can pull that up real quick, let's look at it again, but yeah, I mean, most of your elementaries range from, look at one as low as 12,000, well, actually, yeah, 12,000. One as high as 65,000, it looks like.
What page are you on?
This is page 45, 46, or 47.
And total on 48.
Then your middle schools, Spring Creek, they're at $200,000 carryover. North Cache is at $360,000, South Cache at just under $300,000. Again, the difference there between Spring Creek as compared to North Cache and South Cache would be the size of the school itself. So your enrollment in Spring Creek is about 700 students, I believe, 800. And at North Cache and South Cache, they're closer to 1,100 or 1,200. So, that would be the difference in the numbers there. And then at the high schools, some up would be with Ridgeline and Green Canyon, I didn't even know if we're up yet as of June 30th, but those are some startup funds that they actually had that they just carried. But Mountain Crest, has $1.1 million they're sitting on, and Skyview has just under $700,000 there.
Are there limitations on how they spend that money?
They fund student fees that are received, such as computer lab fees or any of the individual fees that you have approved, need to be used for the purpose that they are collected. But they also have funding that they'll receive that's discretionary from sock hops and fundraisers and other non-discretionary, or I should say discretionary type revenues that come in, interest earnings and whatnot. Those accumulate. We try to encourage the schools to use the funds that they collect in the year that they're received, because those are the kids who are paying those fees, and the expense should be realized in benefiting those students. Yeah, we do have some here that have actually accumulated.
So can we make it mandatory they have to spend a certain amount?
We have no policy that would say that. I mean, we can
Because I know some of these schools have had it for several years, and it doesn't change any, so, and they ask for more, they should be using some of this.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So I think we need to work on that.
Yeah.
One of the things that would probably help you to understand is that if you were to look at a chart of accounts, this is not all free money. It's tied up in all the organizations and everything down there. If you were to look at that, you'd be able to tell, you know, how much money belongs to the band, how much belongs to the athletics, and maybe that's a direction that we could provide you so you could see. And then the categories where they might be saving for something that they plan on doing, that is easily identified, and we have had our auditors going in and looking at, because in the past, and I don't think it's happening now, you had a general account with money in the bank, and some individual accounts spending more than their share of that money. I think we've worked our way out of those situations, but I think right now is you just got some people who are saving money for whatever reason, and that could be brought to our knowledge.
I
Well,
think that'd be helpful.
would they have had enough money to have done their own football fields, whatever it was that we did for the
New turf.
new turf or whatever? 'Cause
Well,
both
and I
schools said they-
couldn't, you know, I couldn't speak
Oh.
for that, because you'd have to look at the money. I doubt it, but they probably would have a sizable chunk of it.
Did they pay any towards that, or did
We
they?
haven't done them yet.
Oh, so
They
that might be
they
something to
got
look
put
into.
off for a year, yeah.
Yeah, something to look into, to see. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
But that's certainly better than looking at a chart of accounts where everybody had spent everything right down to the line.
Yeah.
You need to understand this is a good report,
Mhm.
but we need to be careful that we're not saving loan institutions. We are here to educate kids, and we need to spend the money in the time that the kids in the school. Dale's absolutely right on that.
Well, I know, you know, when I taught school in the language arts department, we each got a certain amount of money. And we were cautioned to not spend it all in case we didn't get as much money the next year. So that could be part of it too.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And then I also have then the monthly financial reports for July, August, and September. So you can look at those. September, the most current report that we have now. But again, it's only had like 1 month's salary for teachers, makes up the bulk of our general fund budget. But again, things look good there. There was one item that gave me a heart attack for a second, and that was on pages aren't numbered itself, but it's on the third page back, I believe it's fourth page back, capital outlay fund. When you look down at the bottom under new construction, it was showing that we were 137% of budget on that. And then after I saw that, I remembered that we had done a budget or an encumbrance adjustment for Green Canyon High School and some additional costs that had to be encumbered there to be paid. But the original purchase order had been created a couple of years ago, and our system wouldn't allow us to update that encumbrance on the old PO, so we had to create a new one for the new amount that we now owed in total. But the old encumbrance couldn't be eliminated until after we had closed out the entire year and rolled everything over for the new year, which wasn't done in September. That was done the first week in October. So there's about $6 million of expense that's basically shown in that report as encumbered twice. So it's not that bad as it looked, and that made me sleep a lot better.
Glad you didn't get to my desk with that information before you figured it out.
But other than that, if you look at the second to last page, third to last page, I believe.
You're still in the white book.
No, this is on the individual.
Okay, you're in the individual
Right,
section.
that on the line. Just looking then at the health and accident self-insurance program that we have now, we have an individual fund for that. It had just over $3 million carryover at year end, carried into the new year. One of the challenges we face with that is that the bulk of the premiums that we receive are collected over a 9-month period, starting in October through June. And then I have to pay claims for July, August, September, and it's not until the end of the next October that I really start to get new funds to put back into that program. We're getting down very close. In fact, I actually had to borrow, loan $25,000 from the general fund over here to cover last week's claims. Payday is next Tuesday, and so that'll get us through. But until we build up a large enough reserve, it's kind of a dry period from June through October to when we can start up again.
So-
those are some challenges.
So outside of making a larger well for that, is there a better way to do that, or?
Well, the problem we have is that there's so many changes. The employees' insurance year starts September 1st, and teachers get 3 payments in June. And so again, they don't get additional check until the end of September. But we don't have enough time in September with all the changes that are coming in to make those be effective for the September payroll. So really, October's the only time we can make that work. We're very close to being able to cover everything, so we're actually covering more than a year's span with 1 year's set of premiums collected. But as we get into this just a little bit,
I'm sure we'll learn as we go, right?
yeah, we will. This is all new to us too. This is the first year we've had that, so it's
Okay.
really good.
Okay, is that all? All right, thank you, Dale. Thanks to the district for keeping everything under budget. We appreciate that a lot. Okay, we'll move down to board committee reports, and Terry, you have a report for the USBA Board of Directors.
Well, I sent you my report in in email form.
Okay, all right. Does anyone else have any committee reports?
Just thanks for doing that, Terry. Your summaries are great, so.
That's great. Okay, for the board president report, a couple of things. First of all, thank you for attending the legislative visits, school visits, and luncheon. I felt like it went really well, and we were able to have a really good discussion with our legislators, and instead of kind of coming in unfamiliar, we sort of had a little bond as we came in, so there was a lot more visiting and conversation. Does anyone have any comments on any of that?
I thought the school visits were a great idea. That worked out really well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that as much as we can do that, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then one other thing, would each of the board members who attended schools mind sending a thank you note to the principal of the schools that you attended? You can do it email or use the thank you cards or whatever for letting us come. It was extra work for them and their teachers to host us at their schools, and if you just would recognize that, I'd appreciate that. Okay, and then you have a copy on your pile of stuff of the board member handbook, and I wouldn't say that it is a rough draft, but it is kind of the rough draft. We've had a lot of help putting it together. Terry's worked on it. Jeff has worked on it, Dale's helped us with some things, the superintendent has offered some suggestions. And I had Carolyn just type up 5 things here, if you wouldn't mind, before next week, reading through this and pay attention to those 5 things on the orange sheet that you can comment on so that we could move forward with this. And if you have any questions about it, just email me. And we don't have a big agenda for next week for our board meeting, and so we'll spend some time talking about this and consider that to be our first reading. And there may be some things in formatting that we want to change on it. It's not a policy, so it doesn't really have to be set up like the board policies. It will just be for our board and any new members who come on. But if you would look at that, I'd appreciate it. And then if you'll go into the board president report, this section that has been pasted in here comes from that handbook. And we did have a list of items that I asked you about, of subjects you maybe would like to discuss in board meeting. And there were quite a few of you who wanted to talk about the school community council, kind of what the responsibilities are. So I'll just let you read that first paragraph on your own if you haven't already. But I did want to hit on these 8 things. It's the responsibility of the Board of Education to conduct local board training, which we have done, encourage school community councils to establish written procedures for parent notifications, elections, and other council tasks and responsibilities, including rules outlining parliamentary order and procedure, ethical behavior, and civil discourse. We have a lot of new principals who have come on since the school community councils came up with these procedures. When you visit the school community councils, if you would just ask them, do they have the written procedures for voting? And my experience so far this year is that they have them, but they're not really using them, mostly because there's not enough people to vote on. They have to go out and try and get people to be on this school community council. But they are asked or required to have those. So if you would just ask them about it and encourage them to do that. Carolyn has put on board docs in the library section a schedule of all of the school community councils, so you can look and see when they're being held. And now, because the high schools are starting a little bit later, I think they're having them early in the morning.
Yeah.
So-
Ridgelines is at 7.
And
7
Skyview's
a.m.
is 6:45. So that might make it easier for those of you who are assigned high schools to get to those before you have to go to work. And then because it's later for the elementary schools, theirs are a little bit later. So like Sunrise is at 4, or Birch Creek was at 4. And so I don't know if that helps you out or not. Some of you, because of work responsibilities, it's impossible, but whatever. You know, you can check that schedule and see. Okay, number 3 is oversee the training of each school community council in the district, which we did, and Mike and Ann put that together, and it was an excellent presentation. And then, as we've learned over the last few years, that we need to read each of their plans. And then number 5, return them if they're not correct. And 6, use a locally agreed upon rubric, which Mike gave us last year, and hopefully he will do that again this year. Was that helpful?
Yes.
Very.
To everyone?
Yes.
Okay. And then meet as a minimum annually with each school community council to analyze the processes school community councils use to accomplish council responsibilities. And then direct district personnel to make sure school plan expenditures are identified and supported by school data. And I think Mike explained that pretty well to us last year, and that was one of the things we mostly commented on in their plans that were wrong, was they didn't have the expenditures matched up with their goals.
Right.
So anybody want to add anything more about the school community council visits and our responsibilities there?
I have a question. Where did you say Carolyn put the list of?
Well, she said it was under the library and board docs. Is it
Because
not
I'm
there?
looking at that, and I can't find it under any of the tabs in the library.
Okay, I'll check with her on that. That's where she said she was going to.
But
So,
maybe I don't know what she called it. I don't know.
she did say that once she got him on, then schools started calling, or the secretary started calling and saying, we've changed. So, you know, it's fluid. But if you do go to the school community councils, one thing that you can do is, once you've called the principal once to ask if you could attend, ask him if you can be on the email list. And so they just automatically send it out to you.
Yeah, that's
That
what I
works
get.
until they get a secretary change
Oh, and then.
on the council.
Oh, okay. Right, but that has helped me, because then I get a notice
Yeah.
every month of it, and I don't have to call every single month, which gets to be kind of hard. Okay, we will talk about the board goals. Those have been written up, and they actually are in this board member handbook. So if you want to look over those, we will discuss those next week. And a lot of you expressed interest in a parent university, which was suggested at our meeting in September down at Park City. And so we'll talk about that next time too, as to what direction we would like to go on that. Okay, Superintendent.
Just one short item. We've had lots of activity going on with our teams in the district right now, and we have a game coming up at 8 o'clock. Skyview will be playing for state championship. I only bring that up because Mike Jacobson, he was a superintendent in Idaho with me before he came down. He came down before I did. Went to Tooele first, then Provo, and then Weber. But a few years ago, he retired, and he said, I knew it was time when I had no desire to go to any more games. And I just want you to know that I'm not there. So last night, I had the privilege of being down there at UVU, and the games were staggered, so some started at 4 and some started at 5:30. But there was a time when all 4 courts had our 4 teams playing. And all 4 of those sent, I don't know how they figure who plays who, but apparently it was such that all of our teams met all of one other districts, the district around Orem and Provo. And Kathy and I just happened to be sitting where the Spanish Fork people came, and they were a 1 seed from their district, and they were playing our 4 seed Mountain Crest. And you had Ridgeline playing on the far court, and they were going, the reason they were still playing is they had to go 5 games to beat their first game, and then Mountain Crest had already started. But I just sat there for a minute and I thought, 4 teams from our district were out there playing, and all 4 teams won and sent the other district home without a single victory. And I happened to be sitting among the Spanish Fork parents. They came in and just kind of surrounded us because that's where their team was playing Mountain Crest. And they didn't get a chance to even yell once. They sat down and Mountain Crest just started playing their hearts out. And the score was just, the first set was over and Mountain Crest had won. Second one went to really close, about 20 to 18 or 19 as I remember. And I remember leaning over to my wife and saying, if Mountain Crest gets this one, we can put this in the oven and it's over, it's done. And they barely squeaked it out, and then you could just see those kids from Spanish Fork were just, they were done. They couldn't even muster up much for that 3rd game. But what a neat feeling to know that you have 4 teams now of kids in our valley playing volleyball, where 2 years ago we only had 2. And you just think about that and multiply that over the whole district, how wonderful it is to have all these kids involved. 4 student body presidents, 4 choirs, 4 bands. No matter how you look at it, it was an investment in this district, in the kids, and it's just really paying off. And football, I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 of our football teams got through the first night, because Poor Bear River came over and played a homecoming game every week and just lost some games, really close ones to everybody. And so they could go down as a fourth-place team and beat a first-place team. They really could. And so this Friday night is going to be another one of those nights. And we just need to let Alan know that he was our representative tonight, and he couldn't stay away, and he took off and went down there. But you can watch it on the computer if you just go to the Utah Activities Association. It's going to be on at 8 o'clock. So it's just a great time to be a part of this system, and I hopefully, it's the fun part. It's the part that makes just being a part of the system really a joyous occasion to see all those kids celebrate and be so happy. And we are playing Park City tonight, so it might be a good deal but it should be a good game. Yeah. And
Ridgeline won 3-2.
yeah, Mountain Crest gave them a fight. In fact, Mountain Crest went 3-0 and 3-0, and then had to meet one of our teams and went 3-2. 2-3, they lost. But that boy, I'll tell you, they really came alive.
All right, thank you. I'll just add too that I went to Skyview and we just saw their fine arts classes. And I know they were feeling pretty bad that they lost all their top-notch, awesome fine arts people to Ridgeline. But they have got fabulous teachers there, and those programs are just as strong as they were before. The kids we got to see them in action, and they were doing really, really great too.
Don't let them get by saying they lost them all, because they kept the art teacher, and he's
Oh, yeah.
They have Lester Lee still.
Yeah,
he's phenomenal.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
So
Well-
Kathy, just one thing I've got, and I was gonna send Josh at Ridgeline a card, because when we went with Kurt Webb into Ridgeline yesterday, that school looked unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was perfect.
Shining, huh?
Yeah, and even the glass panes in between the stairways there wasn't a handprint on them. And to go into the school with him when it looks like that, and we say, this is what we're doing with the taxpayers' money, you can tell that story every time. And then we went to Providence, and it's a little older, but it looked great. And he commented on that. And I think that, we need to keep in mind the recognition for those people that are keeping it looking so
question.
nice.
The most disheartening thing I ever witnessed was Gilbert, Arizona schools, and going through financial difficulties, and a board that was split, and they took a fine school system and just ran it into the ground. And one of the earliest signs was you'd go into their buildings and they were dirty, and they were maintenance was postponed, and boy, I'll tell you, it's a sad deal. And right now, I can't think of a school that I'm not proud to go by and go in and be a part of, and they're clean, and we got rid of all the two-story structures, so we don't have to worry about seismic concerns, and boy, this community has just done a fantastic job of helping us take care of our buildings.
Yeah, they looked phenomenal, and that's a good story to tell when I'm in with him, so.
Is there a way to pass that along to the custodians in the district?
Yeah, we
do appreciate
Kurt McRae is still over the custodians, and I'll make sure that he gets
That would be good, because I felt the same about the schools we went into.
Yeah.
They looked great. I mean, for Skyview being as old as it is, it's
Skyview
awesome.
does not look like a school that's over 50 years old, I can tell you that.
Yeah, looks great.
A few bathrooms and a few ceiling tiles that we got to take care of, but in the long range, we'll take a couple of those classrooms and Mountain Crest a year and just go in and totally gut them and renew them, and that's kind of what we're at.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Okay, well, Superintendent, I'd like to thank you for running such a tight ship here in the district, and I had a lot of pride taking those people around to the schools. I felt really proud of what we have going in our schools, and to our district staff as well. Thank you so much. We've got a great district, and Our teachers were awesome in the classes that we visited. They were fantastic. And the kids were so darling. They were so cute. I just have to share one quick little experience. We went into a couple of Portuguese classes, and they won't let their kids speak English. But I wanted to talk to the kids, you know? And so they were doing math, and I asked the aide, I said, could they speak in English so I could talk to them? And so she, in Portuguese, told this little girl it was okay for her to talk in English to me. And so I asked her to explain to me what she was doing. So it's the new math, which I have no clue how to do. And the questions are all written in Portuguese, which I have no clue what it says. And she just read off the questions to me and explained how she was doing all of this new stuff. And it was a second grade class.
Yeah.
It was really fun, very awesome. So thank you to our district staff and to our superintendent, business administrator, and to our board. We have a great board, and I appreciate that very much. I know if I ask you to do something, you're going to be willing to give it a try and come through it with flying colors. So with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I make the motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
All in favor say yes? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned.